So we're going to be talking about Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga and what really makes it different to other practices, other forms of yoga. And so in the manual you'll see Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga, and opposite that is something called Tristana, which I want to focus on because this was the part of the practice that really made a difference for me. It turned what could have been a very gymnastic practice into a moving meditation. And yeah, I'm very, in the teaching that, and in this course, we're going to be really looking at this aspect of Tristana. So what is Tristana? Basically, Tri is three. So there's three things. It's breath, the Ujjayi breath that we're using in the practice. It's drishti, that is the gaze and the focus of the eyes. And it is bandha, which we haven't spoken about yet that much. So these three things are in the practice of Ashtanga Yoga. We have been looking at the breath so far, and I've been telling you to soften the gaze of the eyes. And the bandhas, I would say that the bandhas are more advanced. I would say when I'm teaching a group, I would ask them to listen to their breath, and maybe just that, yeah? If they're maybe new to yoga and they haven't done Ujjayi breath before, then I just do a class focusing on Ujjayi breath. And that's enough. You know, you've got the breath, you've got the movements, you've got the vinyasas, and it's enough for people. But once they've been doing that for quite a while, then you can start to say, let's look at the focus of the gaze. The eyes are open. And for most people, they're like, oh, I can't keep my eyes open. They close, and then I open them, and they close. But over time, you develop much more of a focus. Like your ability to focus becomes strengthened through the practices. And the eyes and the brain have a very strong correlation. So if you see somebody actually who is, their eyes are fluctuating or kind of shaking, or they're blinking a lot, things like that, it doesn't always, but it can point to there's a lot of mental activity. So when we slow the eyes down and we focus on a point, then the mind or the mental activity starts to reduce. So this is why the drishti is done. And I've seen this in people where they've done a lot of meditation or they're a spiritual teacher, and you talk to them and they're very still and their gaze is very still. They're not looking around, they're not fidgeting, they're just very present. And so this, they say that drishti is opening up the energy center here, which is the third eye chakra, and purifying the mind of, subconscious memories and thoughts and everything that is clouding the mind. So these practices of just looking at a single point, like Trataka, looking at yantras, looking at a candle flame, looking at a point on the wall, very, very powerful. So in the asana practice, we don't look at a flame or a point on the wall, but we're looking at points on our body. So in triangle posture, for example, I would be looking at my hand. And so now we're talking about drishti. There are different points to focus on in different postures, because you can't always be looking at your hands. But like in Paschimottanasana, in a forward seated bend, I would be looking at my toes. And we're always looking actually in the direction that you're traveling, you know? So here I'm traveling up with the hand, I'm looking up to the hand, it encourages the posture. Here I'm looking to the toes, And it encourages the spine to lengthen rather than do this. That's not going to encourage. So looking to the toes is like, I need to go that way, not that way. Yeah. So these drishtis, or these points of focus, bring our attention in. So we're not constantly looking around at what other people are doing, or we're not disturbed by outside things. Somebody walks in and you just follow them. And you see this happening in classes. You know, if I'm teaching a yoga class and somebody else comes in, everybody turns around and looks. And as the teacher, you're like, just coming back to the present moment, closing your eyes, listening to the breath or wherever. You're having to, as a teacher, pull people's focus in and in, because there's a lot of distractions, in some people more than others. Yeah. So the breath pulls us in, because the sound of the breath, Ujjayi breath, we're listening to the sound. So instead of external sounds, we're listening to our internal sound. And if you're more kinesthetic, you will be able to feel the breath moving in. And that will also pull the senses in. There is something called pratyahara, which means withdrawal of the senses in the 8 limbs of yoga and Patanjali. Pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses. And it leads to concentration, deeper levels of meditation, and ultimately like this experience of oneness, which is yoga. So pulling the senses normally go out. Every noise, I'm like, what's that? What's that? What's that? But if I'm listening to my breath, then it's almost like I'm turning around and guiding my attention within. The same with drishti. I'm looking at my hand, but hopefully I'm not looking at it going, I've got lines on my hand, like those deep grooves. I'm looking, but I'm not looking in that normal way. I just like the eyes are just focused, and this is why we have the gaze like half open, because it's not the normal looking. It's like a soft focus. Yeah. And it's very beautiful. I always say to people, try to have those eyes where like you eat some chocolate and you're like, yeah, that kind of gaze, that softness, that joy of perceiving. Yeah. So we've got the eyes, we've got the breath, and then lastly, we've got the bandha. Bandha is very powerful if you're feeling energy. So if you're feeling energy moving in your body, and you then lift Mula Bandha, which is the pelvic floor, you will feel the energy, the current of energy coming up. If you can't feel energy and you lift Mula Bandha, all you'll feel is your pelvic floor muscles firming, yeah, which is good. Yeah, it's good to tone that area of the body, but it becomes much more interesting when you can feel energy, because then it's like, whoa, I'm bringing the energy up through the chakra system, and you can direct it to the heart, the navel, wherever you want. So it's a way of moving the energy, it's a way of guiding the energy. And Mula Bandha in women is inside, so right up towards the cervix area is where we can feel it, like the walls of the vagina are coming in. And it's not a contraction, so it's not like I have to do a Kegel and hold it. It's like much more delicate and subtle than that. It's like a lifting, an energetic lift. The pelvic floor muscles are working. But to have this sensitivity, I think there needs to be a certain amount of internal awareness already. Yeah, a lot of people don't have that, and very much, and we were just talking about, you know, sexual abuse, and like we can cut off our connection to this area quite often because we've been told as children, don't play with that, don't show it, don't touch it, cover up. You know, there's all this shame in this area of the body that we might not even know about, but we come to feel Mula Bandha, maybe we can't feel much. And so to say to a class, Mula Bandha, Mula Bandha, Mula Bandha, is very confusing. And I was confused for a long time. In Ashtanga classes where I went, they would just say Mula Bandha, and I'd go, okay, that means like lift my pelvic floor. And I really didn't know why I was doing it. It was never explained to me what that was for. So for a long time, I asked my teachers, and they were like, it's an energy lock. I was like, okay. But I didn't really know why I was trying to lock energy or seal energy and what the purpose of that was. So I'm going to tell you what I've discovered, which is we've been looking at the postures in the posture clinic and the energy flow that's coming up from the ground into the body. When you like lift the pelvic floor, Mula Bandha, and we're going to look at Mula Bandha more deeply in anatomy, and we're going to talk about it more. But for now, just lifting the pelvic floor, it's like we're drawing the energy in from the earth. And then the firming of the lower abdomen, which happens naturally when you lift the pelvic floor, there's a firming, just, yeah, not contracting, not pushing in, but it just happens gently. There's a whole firming of that area, and that helps to bring the energy up. And then there is a bandha called Jalandhara bandha, which they do a lot in pranayama practice. So it's the dropping of the chin. So in pranayama practice, I could be breathing, like in Kapalabhati, you know, we do the pumping and then we hold the breath. I could drop the chin there, and what would that do? That would lock the energy in this torso, this container, this body, under pressure, under more pressure, and also it's holding the energy in my head. So I feel a greater pressure of energy, and that is forced through the nadis, through the energy channels, and unblocks any blockages, and opens and activates the chakras. So the bandhas are a very energetic practice, and it's like, you know, when you get blood in a vein and there are the valves and they're kind of pointing that way for the blood to flow, or the valves are like, they're not going that way, but they're going that way, so the blood flows that way. It's the same thing with the bandhas. It's like you're drawing, you're pointing the way for the energy to travel, and you're encouraging more intensity in the energy that's coming up. And you can feel it once you're tuned into energy and you've been looking into feeling sensations. And I remember it happening at some stage in my practice. I was like, what's this? I can really feel sensations in my body. And I was really excited about it because I hadn't felt anything so far. But all of a sudden, the energy just started to get more intense. And I was asking my teacher, like, tell me about this. And he was like, just do your practice. They never want to teach about any phenomenon because you can get... well, I think it's also to just keep you practicing, to just keep like grounded in the practices. You know, some people are sharing about, oh my God, I saw angels, or this happened, I floated. And there's so many different things that happen when we are practicing yoga. You'll experience all of these things. And I feel teachers don't want you to get lost in those things, thinking it's something really special. One, because you will then want it to happen again and it doesn't happen again. So you're always craving it to come back. I want to levitate again, do you know? And then you're like, oh, I'm not levitating, and just feel heavy. So it's like, see those things and enjoy them while they're there, but don't chase them. You know, so many different things will happen. So I never really got to understand so much about Mula Bandha until I felt it in my body. And I was like, oh, that's what it does, you know? So I feel like Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha is an advanced practice. The bandhas are, you know, when somebody has been doing yoga for quite a while, they've very sensitive to their energetic body, and they're ready for it. They've got the breath, they've got the drishti, they've got the postures, and now, okay, play with the energy. So we will do that in our course because it's a 4-week training. We're learning how to be teachers, but we'll wait, you know, until maybe the end of week 2, week 3, to start to bring that awareness in, because it's quite a lot to do breath, bandha, and drishti at the same time in the postures. Yeah, so I like to just teach with breath first. Ooh. Then bring the drishti in, and then later the bandhas. Yeah. But ultimately, this is why this practice is a very deep and meditative practice. And so it's a shame that it's speeded up and this has been lost. And people say, oh, it's a gymnastic exercise, like going to the gym, Ashtanga Yoga. It's not. It's really actually profound. And this is why I'm teaching it, because it transformed me like no other practice did. And so I feel if we can go away from that gymnastic element and the pushing and the forcing and the going quick, and we can do it in our own way as women, which is soft and feminine and compassionate and kind, then we can have a really beautiful practice and a very powerful one. Yeah. And so let's just do, to finish, a little exercise to feel all 3 of those techniques that I was just talking about. We'll just sit here for a few minutes, really, with the eyes a little bit open and just looking down to maybe half a meter away from you. Looking down the nose. You can see the nose, but you're looking not to the tip, but you're looking down towards the ground, and the eyes are soft. And then we're bringing in Ujjayi breath. And see how soft you can make Ujjayi breath, how soft and relaxed. So that sound is really beautiful. Sometimes it's called oceanic breath, because it sounds like the tide of the ocean flowing in and out. And start to really enjoy the breath as much as you can. Relaxing the body and softening the gaze of the eyes. Feel the breath flowing through you. Encouraging the flow of Shakti or prana or energy. And bring your awareness to the pelvic floor area. And you can start to gently lift the pelvic floor as you inhale, holding the pelvic floor as you exhale, and just relaxing the pelvic floor at the end of the exhalation. When you inhale again, lift the pelvic floor gently. Hold as you exhale the breath out, and just at the end of the exhalation, relax. We're not squeezing or contracting, we're just seeing if we can gently lift. Slow down the breath. And just notice how you've got these three things: breath, bandha, drishti, helping you to focus and come into the present moment. And now deepen the breath. Breathe a little bit more intensely. And we're just going to take a deep inhale and hold the breath. And lift the pelvic floor. See if you can feel a sensation moving up through the body as you lift the pelvic floor up to the top of the head. And then relax and breathe out. And continue to breathe with Ujjayi breath. And let's try that again. So breathe a few times. And now take a deep inhalation. Hold the breath. Lift the pelvic floor. See if you can feel any sensations moving up through the spine towards the top of the head as you lift quite intensely to just feel the effects of that, and then relax, breathe out, and relax the pelvic floor. Good, and just release the breath, close the eyes, and relax the bandhas, relax the pelvic floor. And just feel the effects of that practice. Good, and let's bring our hands to our heart. I'll just do 3 Oms to close this session. Deep breath in. Ah.